So we're going to do a slide presentation today on time and temperature control for food safety. We're looking at potentially hazardous foods, not limited to, but including milk and dairy products, meat, poultry, fish, shellfish, eggs, and tofu, or any kind of a protein food. Rice and baked potatoes, or even pasta can be in this category. Sprouts and leafy greens, ice, sliced melon, or any kind of cut tomatoes, salads, or processed fruits and vegetables. So we have temperature danger zones, and to hold food, we want it to be less than or equal to 41 degrees Fahrenheit or greater than or equal to 135 degrees Fahrenheit. So therefore we would consider the temperature danger zone in between 41 and to 135. We want to cook our proteins in particular to certain internal temperatures before they are served to help with food safety. And so therefore any steaks or roasts or fish or pork up to 145 degrees minimum, and ground beef or any kind of a ground bison or venison or elk up to 160 degrees. Egg dishes, including things like quiches or casseroles, 160 degrees as well. And any chicken breasts or whole poultry, this includes turkey, quail, any kind of a poultry, 165 degrees minimum. So most pathogens actually grow faster between the temperature of 70 to 125 degrees. And for this reason, we want to make sure that when it comes time to cooling foods, we want to have our cooling time be a total of 6 hours, but in the first 2 hours, you need to get the food down from its holding temperature that was above 135 degrees. So we want to get it to below 70 degrees in 2 hours minimum, or maximum, excuse me. And then you want it to go from 70 degrees to 40 degrees in the next 4 hours. So there would be two-stage cooling. So again, the first 2 hours, it has to go from 135 and above to 70 degrees. And then the second stage, which would be 4 hours time, from 70 to 40 degrees. So cooling food properly, there are several different methods that you can use. An ice bath, placing a pan of food in an ice water bath and stirring the food frequently to help reduce the temperature. You can portion the food into smaller amounts, smaller pans, smaller containers, and refrigerate, and then cut big pieces of meat into smaller pieces. This helps. And do not store in the refrigerator as it's cooling with a lid on it, because that will not help the food to reduce to its proper temperature. While you're cooling food in the refrigerator, like I mentioned, don't cover the pan and don't stack pans on top of each other, as air must be able to circulate around the food. Very similar to if we're thinking about convection ovens to heat food up, the hot air is circulating. So we need the cool air to circulate around the pans as well. We also have equipment like ice wands or a blast chiller that you can use, and this helps cool the food as well. So refrigerators and freezers need to be monitored and have proper thermometers in them. You can use a digital or you can use the manual, but you want to check it daily or multiple times a day for each shift and have them record these times and temps. But I must note that as a supervisor or kitchen manager, you must frequently double check the record time and temps written in by the staff, because I have personally experienced where staff will just write down what the temperature should be without even checking. And so therefore it's highly recommended that as a supervisor or kitchen manager, you are frequently double checking what the staff has written. So using a digital or probe thermometer to check your temperatures of your foods, both while it's in holding and while it's cooking. So we have the digital probe thermometer on the right, checking those cooked chicken breasts that look like they're about ready to go out for service. And then we have, of course, on the left-hand side, a probe thermometer that's checking the chicken breast, maybe as it's just been pulled out of the oven, to check and see what the temperature is to ensure that it's been cooked to its proper temperature. In this case, chicken would be 165 or higher. So you can also use infrared thermometers, and these are similar to the ones that we use nowadays for checking our own body temperature, but you want to make sure you're using it in surface mode, not body. And it's a no contact type of thermometer, which does help with avoiding any cross-contamination. So there is ice safety, and there are several different problems that can happen with ice, and that is cross-contamination. So we want to ensure that we are using clean and proper ice containers and using the ice scoopers, and ensuring that we are properly storing and using the ice for cooling our food. If we're using let's say a salad bar in the cafeteria or even on a service line, having the ice there to cool the food to maintain the proper temperatures. But one thing I do want to point out, most in particular, is the cleanliness of the ice machine, because this has been a very big issue in many food service, commercial food service locations, where they don't regularly clean the ice machines, and therefore we get a buildup of mold and contaminants in there. So the ice machines should at minimum be cleaned at least once a week, where you drain out all of the ice and clean the machines with proper cleaning chemicals, whether that be a bleach and water mixture or some kind of a commercial item, but ensuring that it's cleaned properly and recording this information as well. When you are reheating and holding food, you want to never use a holding unit, so a steam table, a bain-marie, or a chafing dish to cook food. Now, I personally experienced this when I had to take over a long-term care facility kitchen as the kitchen manager temporarily. I was the dietitian for the facility, and our kitchen manager actually walked off the job day one when we were getting our state audit. Because they discovered many problems that I had actually brought up with our executive management on many occasions, and it was disregarded until the state inspection happened. So I had to take over, and what I found was this particular kitchen manager was teaching the kitchen staff to heat food on the steam table. And of course this can create foodborne pathogens, because the food is definitely not able to heat in a proper amount of time or even get to the correct temperature, cooking temperature. It may be able to hold the food at the correct temperature of 135 or higher, but it may not be able to get, let's say, up to the 165 degrees. So this is an area that I have personally witnessed happening. You want to keep the hot foods at 135 or higher in a holding unit capable of maintaining this temperature. So this is also not just during the service of the food where you're dishing the food up, but as it's going out in food containers that are going out to the patients. These storage units or moving units do need to be capable of maintaining the food temperature, and this is a very common problem that I've experienced at every facility I have ever worked at. You want to consistently check your temperatures with a thermometer every 30 minutes to 1 hour to monitor and take corrective action. So if you have, for example, a steam table that you're doing service with, you want to make sure that you're checking that temperature at a minimum of every 30 minutes, because if your food does fall below the 135-degree holding temperature, you need to reheat or take corrective action. So reheat all the food to 165 degrees for a minimum of 15 seconds, or throw it out if it gets below, if it's cold food and it gets above 41 degrees, because you don't want the possibility of any bacteria growing in there. If you're using a microwave to reheat the food, it must be covered, rotated, and stirred, and be allowed to stand covered for at least 2 minutes after reheating. And so then also I wanted to make sure that we are using proper dating techniques, because this comes into the timing effect. So if we have food that is too old, or is, should be served within a day or two, and now it's 4 days old, we know this by using proper labeling on prepared foods, as the samples to the left show. So you'll put whatever the product item is, its name, the date, the employee that prepared it, a use by date, and even the time that it was prepared is very appropriate. So if it was prepared in the morning or if it was prepared in the evening, can make a difference. So if there is a power outage, you do want to make sure that you throw out any perishable food in your refrigerator or freezer after 4 hours. You can check the temperature of food in your freezer and coolers, but if any of the food, let's say for example in the freezer, goes above 40, then you want to definitely throw it out, or in the refrigerator. You can safely refreeze or cook thawed frozen foods that still contain ice crystals or is at 40 degrees or below. So again, the common phrase is, when in doubt, throw it out, because we do not want to get anyone sick, and food safety is a very high priority, especially when we're working with a population that has already a compromised immune system. And so I have listed some of my sources that I have used. So I've used the cdc.gov, for example, the fda.gov, my local county, washoecounty.gov, our local health district, and a few other sources that I found that had properly cooling, how to properly cool foods, or food safety resources. So please take the time and effort to ensure that we are watching our temperatures and our time, and ensuring that all food goes out safely. Thank you.